Welcome to the Josh Hall Web Design Show. Helping you build better websites and create a web design business that gives you freedom and a lifestyle you love.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 36. And in this one, we are going to continue on with our theme of sales and getting clients. And we're going to take it to the next level. And we're going to do that by talking about conversions. And more specifically, we're going to talk about how you can practically and legitimately increase your conversions by at least 75%. And for this talk, I've brought in somebody who knows a lot about this subject, Jason Gracia, who has been a web designer for over 20 years, and he has a very successful business where he builds websites specifically for coaches and consultants. But the big thing here is that he's learned a lot about conversions, and he is sharing with us in this episode an entire path, a proven 8-step path with how to increase your conversions dramatically. And I'm really excited to share this with you because looking back in my career, I had a lot of emphasis at first on the processes and systems for the actual website designs. And then as I got more serious about the business end of things, I created a lot more processes for my onboarding and offboarding and client revisions and stuff like that. But one thing I really never did up until more recently is to have some sort of process during the sales period, like during, trying to make somebody from a lead to an actual customer, from getting somebody who's interested in your service to actually paying you. So I really never had a process for that, but this is exactly what this episode is. It is literally an 8-step process that you can follow to help you increase your conversions by, again, I'm going to say at least 75% legitimately. So I'm really excited to hear how this one helps you in your business. You're going to love Jason. He is a true professional, really great guy, very savvy with this stuff, and he is very transparent and real through this whole episode and really just gives us a peek behind the curtain as to what he's done to increase his conversions dramatically. So very excited for you in this episode. Now, before we dive in, this one is brought to you by, I'm going to throw you a different one here, my web design course bundle. If you didn't know, I just recently, at the point of launching this episode, I launched my SEO course just recently, and that is my 9th course. So it kind of completes my web design course bundle, or my offerings. I do have several other courses in the works that are in and around web design, but for the past year and a half, I've really been working towards this point, which is really cool to see this come together to where I have my suite of 9 courses out there. And what I've done is I've made a bundle available, which takes a large percentage off the total amount if you were to buy each one of these courses individually. So if you're interested in all my courses, you can save big and check out my web design course bundle. And FYI, if you're already a student in one or more courses, I always offer a discount off the bundle depending on what course you have. So check that out if interested. And without further ado, guys, enjoy my interview with Jason Gracia on how to increase your conversions by at least 75%. Man, I'm pumped up for you guys on this one. Enjoy. Jason, welcome to the show, man. It's great to have you on.
Thanks so much. It's great to be here.
We were just talking before we went live. It's funny doing this podcast now because I'm like talking face to face, well, screen to screen, face to face with people that I've known on like Facebook for years. So I've seen your headshot, and we, I think we've been on Facebook together for a few years now. So to finally get around to doing this, man, I'm pretty excited.
I feel the exact same way. Like, I've heard your voice. I've seen you talk to people. Finally, it's pointed at me. So this is, I've been waiting for this day for years.
Well, that's awesome, man. Well, we're going to have some fun because we're going to dive into a topic that is crucial, and that's conversions. And I was telling you, I didn't really plan this out, but this is kind of part 3 in a little sales clients type series because I talked about sales tips a couple episodes ago. Last episode was how to get clients, but a big piece of all that is conversions. So you are somebody who has been very successful over the years, and I'm really excited to see what's worked for you with how you convert clients and how you convert customers. So I know you've laid out like 8 really great tips for us that we'll go through. But before we dive into that, why don't you let everyone know who you are, where you are, and what you do?
So Jason Gracia, I run Savvy Hippo, which is a web design agency specifically for coaches and consultants. And I'm based in Madison, Wisconsin, where it's winter 11 and a half months out of the year. And yeah, so I've I started 20 years ago, built my first website before there was CSS, before there was anything. I was just hand coding way back at when with HTML. And I was hooked. I love technology and computers my whole life. So when the internet came about and websites and I could type something and the world could see it, that was it. I was in for life. So yeah, for 20 years, I've just been growing my own businesses and building websites. And now I share all that with other people by building their sites.
Gotcha. And I'm curious, did Savvy Hippo, has that changed? Like, was that your web design agency and then you changed it into your coaching business, or what did that look like for your website?
So yeah, it morphed. So long story short, I was running a really successful personal development brand. And then 3.5 years ago, I was diagnosed with cancer. And so at that point, everything got flipped upside down. I had to stop my company. I went through, the treatment and surgery and all that. But during that, I realized helping people with my personal development website, it was just me. And if I could somehow help the helpers, then it could multiply. It would be a springboard where I could reach more people. And so Savvy Hippo I knew I wanted that to be something. In the past, my websites were really specific, the domain name. So I was kind of like motivation 123, you kind of got to write about motivation. So I knew I wanted just a nonsense name that could be anything. I could fill it with anything. And so that's where Savvy Hippo came from. And that morphed over the years. While I was going through treatment, I knew I wanted the name and to somehow help more people. And then I realized coaches and consultants. I love courses. As I said, you are like the course king. But there's something that just connected with me with coaches and consultants, how they reach out to people one-on-one. I love that. And so that's kind of how it flowed from I want to help people, I want to build websites, and then I want to build websites for coaches in particular.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so that's kind of where Savvy Hippo came from.
Yeah, I was curious because I thought years back when we got connected that it looked a little bit different. So
yep, yeah, it's morphed over the years.
Interesting. That's an amazing journey, man. We'll definitely have to do another episode just talking about how you persevered through that journey, because that sounds amazing.
That was something.
And I know it's still a journey. So
I'm waiting for that 5-year mark. So it's been 3.5 years cancer-free. So
wow, that's awesome, Jason. Well, isn't it interesting how like big things in life just point out what's important? Like it made you change your business, which is incredible. And that's something just as a side note before we dive in for me, when my daughter was in the NICU for 2 months, and that just changed everything with how I think about my day, how I think about my routine and how I split up my time. Yeah.
It is crazy. And it was like overnight I got the news and then it was like reset. In a good way. Of course there's, a lot of negatives to it, but
sure.
Like what you went through and what I went through and what so many other people go through, it's just, a big reset, and it gives you a chance to start anew. Things you may have always wanted to do, but you were putting it off for silly reasons.
Right. Well, one thing that's consistent and one thing that never changes is conversions.
you
How about that for a segue?
That was perfect.
Let's talk about that, man, because it's really interesting. Sales and conversions for me, I'm probably more fascinated and into this topic more than anything right now, because I've really seen it shift for me from doing client work to now selling my courses and doing marketing and content marketing and funnels and all that stuff. But there's a lot of parallels. And I imagine what we're going to go through could work for in-person or phone meetings and just web design marketing in general, right? Would you say?
Right. Yeah, I think that's a really good point, because I think when people are in the product course world, they think marketing, they think funnels, they think all of those fundamental marketing techniques. But when it comes to design, art plays a bigger role, I think, than business and marketing. And so sometimes designers don't have that mindset of true marketing and funnels and offers. And so that's why I think it can be so powerful when you bring all of those fundamental marketing techniques into the design world, because they work just as well.
That's a great point, and I'm a shining example of that. I did not even think about any sort of funnel or marketing, the points that we're about to go over. Like my whole thought was, well, I'll go to a networking group and meet somebody, and that is a great way to get clients, and that's how I built my network. But I didn't have any sort of great system in place to nurture that. It was like, I made it very hard on myself, which is what I'm trying to make sure all my students avoid. And I think to start, your first point is to choose a specific target or a result. I think it's a great point to start out with. Now, what does that look like practically? I know it would depend on who your target audience is or your perfect client, but can you just speak on that, Jason, to get us started? Like, what does that look like?
Absolutely. So this was the biggest thing I did, hands down. So like I said, Savvy Hippo kind of morphed, but initially it was web design. I loved designing websites. And so, they had the kind of the business angle, right? It was for entrepreneurs. It was for experts, that whole realm. But I was like everybody else. Everyone did websites. And so I was swimming, in the most crowded ocean in the world. I was a web designer. And so I didn't get many clients. And I realized when I went through my whole ordeal, I have to start taking my advice. I had told people forever, pick a target market and pick a niche. And I separate those target market, the people, niche, what you do. So I finally had to take my own advice. And I said, as much as it was scary and it hurt, because I feel like what most people feel like, you're slicing off everyone who could pay you. All that money you're saying no to. But when you do it, when I chose coaches only, overnight, I became one of just a handful. Before I was one of 10,000. But when I chose coaches, everything changed. I was one of just a few. And I became the go-to. I started getting emails from people that said, hey, I heard you're the coaching guy. And I didn't even do any marketing yet. It just spread. And there's so many benefits. When you specialize, your solution is specialized. It's tailor-made. So instead of saying, I can make a website that does, being on the website, like it's on the internet, people can go. When I chose coaches, I could say, I can create a custom tailor-made website that achieves the objective of a coach. Coaches aren't like everybody else. And you can insert that with any target market. You're not like everyone else. You need specific solutions. And that's why I do what I do, because I can deliver exactly what you need and I can get the result you're looking for. So not only did I choose just coaches, but I chose just client booking. So I wasn't going to help them create e-commerce, not courses, not a speaking site. It was how to take a visitor and turn them into an email lead, a sales appointment, and a client. And so that, for the right person, that screams like among the whole crowd, I stood tall. I was the go-to, and that changed everything. And gotcha. I spent 15 years doing motivation, and my target was humans. So I get it. Like I was scared back then. I wanted 7 billion people to be my audience. I didn't get it. And when I chose coaches and just that specific result, my business exploded. Just from making those few choices. Everything else that we're going to talk about definitely helped. But when I look online, so many designers will design for everyone. And that's hurting them. And they've all heard it, but it's scary. But like John Lee Dumas says, go ahead.
Oh no, please go ahead. I want to hear.
I was just going to say, inch wide, mile deep. Like I really took that as my mantra, and it worked. It absolutely worked.
And it's the big debate. Like, should I go niche or should I? Because with my web design business, I've always kept it open to different kind of clients, and there are pros and cons to both for sure. Right. Like I think being open to everybody in the beginning is probably pretty crucial because you can't start off limited because you don't have expertise. Right. And I did the same thing. Not even in that industry, but just in general. But I definitely see the value of that. I know for me, like the way I did it in a roundabout way. I basically said we only work with certain type of businesses. Like for a while, because one thing I enjoyed was I actually liked working with different industries. It kept it fresh. I don't know if even at this point, if you feel like it gets stale at all, or if you feel like, I'm just doing the same thing over and over. But I imagine the profitability and it makes up for any feelings like that.
Actually, what I love personally, and you're absolutely right. Both ways work. Absolutely. But me, I think my mindset is I love systems and I love perfecting systems. So every coach that comes through, I learn just a little new nugget. And then the next coach gets that nugget. And so I love just adding to this perfected system that my clients go through. That's kind of where I get my joy.
Yeah.
But I can definitely see people who are doing the same thing over and over. If they're not made for that, my way's probably not going to work for them too well.
And it probably would just depend on the industry, because a lot of web designers come into the game and they're like, well, maybe I'll just make websites for medical offices or something like that. And the value of that is like what you're doing. You get to know that industry and you get to really build a nice system around it. You are limited in some ways, although it would depend on the industry. Like you're dealing with coaches. I mean, what's the market for coaches? Millions of, potential people. So it's still a huge market, but,
right. You got to do that research
I would
beforehand.
think, you'd have to make sure it's a like if you just want to work with like steel companies, that's going to be tough, But I just say that to say like, I've enjoyed working with different industries, but I understand the struggle with that as well. It really is a pros and cons, but either way, even if you're starting out and you're not, you want to be able to take on different industries, it would be worthwhile of like at least knowing your boundaries. For example, like I always worked with small to medium-sized businesses. We were not built for like these huge build outs. I remember like I used to get leads like crazy from realtors who wanted to have these custom systems built for listing their properties and stuff. I'm like, listen, I just don't do that's just not something I do. And that's where people really get into trouble in the early days, when they're like, they just say yes to everything. And then it's, well, yeah, I'll figure it out. But you can figure out a 10-page brochure style site, but you're probably not going to be able to effectively figure out a realty custom, back-end system. That's a whole different ball game, and it's going to be very costly. So,
and a lot of designers don't actually, they take the price and that's all they focus on is like the big price they're getting. But if you mapped it out and you actually saw how many hours you were putting into all these out of your expertise and out of your realm jobs,
good point.
You're making sometimes pennies. If you only focus on that, I'm making, $5,000. If you map it to how many hours you're putting in when you don't know what you're doing, you're not making that much money at all.
That's a great point, man. Yeah. It's very costly when you're like too far outside of what you do or what you know. So I think it's a great first point. Going niche in a certain market or industry that you really know well, or you feel like has a lot of, viability, then like you did, that's great. It's good to hear a good example of how that worked out, because I've seen some of the opposite where people do focus on certain niches or niches, if you will, and then they end up kind of bottlenecking themselves. But the rest of this adds on to that, which the next point to this you talked about was generating traffic, and there's obviously a variety of ways to go about that, and this could potentially work whether you're in a certain niche or whatever. But what did that look like for you as far as how to generate traffic? Because that's what everyone wants to know. How do I get more people on my site? How do I get in front of more eyes?
So this is my like secret sauce. So I come from marketing, right? I got a degree in marketing. My dad was a marketing consultant. Like that was my dream. The reason I started my first website was because coming out of college, I wanted to be a marketing consultant, but I didn't feel like I had any right to go to any business as this, young punk who never ran anything. So that's how I started my first website. It was going to be a side project that I would get my hands dirty and learn about running something so that I could help other people. And so I'm different than most designers in that I am a marketer first. I want my sites to look good, but I want them to work. And so everything I do comes from that marketing mindset. So whenever I enter an industry, and I think whether, like we just talked about, whether you niche, whether you don't, this is a key to getting up and running so fast. So whenever I enter an industry, what I do is I go and I map out the B and C players of that industry. So sometimes you can get an A player, and I'm not giving them ABC by, the quality of who they are or anything like that. Just, the size of the brand.
Gotcha.
But A's, there's gatekeepers. It's hard to get to them. But B's and C's, a lot of time they're open. And so what I did was, when I chose coaching, for example, I found out everyone who worked with coaches. So mentors to coaches. And I started a blog series where I would feature them. I do a short interview. It was just like 10 questions about their business, what they do, how they help coaches, best advice. And I really featured them. So I wanted them to feel special. So I reached out to them, letting them know I loved what they were doing. And you got to do that work. So many people talk about networking and they all want to do the shortcuts, like use this standard canned email about, I read blog post X, and
Right.
they see right through it. So I actually did the work, right? I followed these people. But then I reached out and I said, I love what you're doing. I didn't even mention what I was doing at first. I just said, I love what you're doing. And I have this feature on my blog where I'm featuring the leaders of this industry. And that's definitely you. You've done X, Y, Z. I knew their blog posts, I knew their podcasts, I knew their courses, and they loved it. Every single one of them, they felt special because everyone wants to feel important and special. And so I did that, and that established a relationship. So with 10 experts in my industry, I got to talk to them. We emailed, we connected. They knew me, I knew them. And then I featured them, and then they shared that feature, which that in itself is a strategy, right? But really what I was doing was putting what I did in front of the right people. And once those people learned that I built coaching websites and they knew their clients were struggling so much with websites, I was the obvious choice. So one crazy story, right when I started doing this, my wife and I, there was a thing called travel back in the days when you could go places. And my wife runs a travel agency with her mom, which I don't know how that's going to go. But we went to Mexico, and one of my experts reached out and said, oh, this little interview you did was fantastic. I'm going to share it with my audience. Went to bed on a Saturday, and I woke up the next day with 40 sales calls booked.
Wow.
And that was 3 weeks into my web design, that journey of Savvy Hippo serving coaches. And I just repeated. So my number one tip for web designers is I call it OPA, other people's audiences. Direct outreach works. I did that one-to-one. Content marketing, of course, works. Advertising, all those things definitely work. But for me, I always go to the leaders. I form a connection, and then I put what I do in front of them in a way that helps. And so for those guys, I offered to do free website reviews for their audience or a strategy session so they could learn about, if they don't have a site yet, here are some of the things you need, like the top 3 things you should have on a coaching website.
That's great.
And over and over and over. And still, to this day, I still get tens of thousands of dollars in business just from those initial relationships. So that would be my number one tip.
I love
Reach out to the leaders.
Yeah, I love any strategies that are not the norm. I just love hearing about, and that's one of the great ones. Is pinpoint, like I said, the B's and T's, but the gatekeepers, and featuring them. And the cool thing about that is it adds value to everyone involved. Like it elevates your brand, gets your name out there, but it also elevates them. And then it also helps the people who are listening and learning. Like it's really a 3-in-1.
Right.
It's one thing. One of my students who's killing it right now, instead of the typical advertising of Facebook ads or stuff like that, he's doing some networking. But what he's doing is he started a podcast for like his local area, and he's interviewing local businesses. He's not selling his services. Like he's not, you could drop your name and your services in that, but all he's doing is just making connections and helping the local community. And that is feeding his business. It's making him aware. And they're like, oh yeah, that one guy hosts the, he's interviewing a bunch of people. He does websites. I trust him now. Let's go with him. So that is just a great example of a method. The cool thing about that too, is it doesn't even have to be in your area. You could host a blog series or a podcast series or a video series and interview people, however you do it, with certain industries or whatever, and you can really elevate yourself as somebody who's trustworthy, even if you're fairly new to the game. Like that's probably, that's what I would do going back. I mean, I'm not upset about my path by any means. It worked out really well, but a faster way to go for me in getting to 6 figures with my business, I would say do something like that. Like join my Chamber of Commerce, but then do like a video series interviewing a lot of the successful businesses. And then that would have elevated me much, quicker and really placed me as an authority. So that's a great strategy. I couldn't agree more.
And you're right. Not only client generation, but overnight I was known by thousands within just a few weeks by doing this, because I had connections with all those leaders. I had connections with their audiences. So I went from a nobody to a known entity in my market in just a few weeks. So yeah, you're absolutely right. It elevates your brand so fast.
That's awesome. Now, after that, we got to talk about how to kind of funnel them, which I hate. I really kind of hate using the term funnel because it's so overused. Yeah, it's so entrepreneurial, salesy, and I hate to use the terminology, but it is. It's okay. So we talked about figuring out ideally at least a broad or smaller target type of your ideal client. Traffic generation, which we could talk for hours about, but I love the idea of the opposite approach of something more organic, and then you just really setting up win-wins for your potential clients and their customers, and giving yourself some authority with either a blog series or podcast or something, or a video series. But then that's got to lead into something. I guess the question is, like, what did you find worked for lead-ins, particularly with that kind of strategy?
Yep, exactly. Because I feel like if I just said I do web design, I would still probably get a trickle of clients, because when it came up, they would think, oh, I'll send them your way. But what I did was, as soon as I reached out and we got to that point in our relationship that we could kind of talk about what we did, I said, I would be happy for anyone on your list who's either struggling with their website or who doesn't have one yet and they're just overwhelmed. They don't know where to start. I have this great call. It's just a quick little strategy session where I can do a review of their website and give them some pointers, or I can tell them some of the top things they need to look out for if they're in the market for a new website. So I had the Savvy Hippo coaching website review. And that's what I offered to all of my partners. Instead of saying, I build websites, book a sales call, it was a no obligation, free chance for you to talk with an expert in web design and learn some of the best things you can do right now to get better results. Whether or not you ever hire us or hire anyone, this is going to help you. And so that was the offer. And so, I think designers need to think a little bit more like the lead generator, not so much, let's book a sales appointment, let's see if we're a good fit, but I have some great value I can offer for you, whether or not you use us. If you do, that's great. If not, you're still going to walk away from this call knowing so much more about what you need to do. And so that also helped. Once I was in front of the audience, I had this great free offer that traffic just came over and over, and those calls booked so fast.
And I think the really important thing to consider with that kind of lead offer is that in web design, these are purchases that are pretty big investments. And I talk in several of my courses about one really important thing to remember is that when you're in web design, you are creating a relationship when you have a client that could potentially last decades. I mean, I have people I still talk to and clients from like 2010 when I started. So it's not something where you generally want to sell something immediately. Like, it's not something they can just buy on the site like a product.
Right.
They're engaging in a relationship and an experience and something that's going to last a long time. So I think that's very valuable to start that off right. Like, and I'm not sure if you've read Story Brand by Donald Miller. I know it's really popular right now. It's really changed the way I think about marketing. But one of the great analogies in that book is like, if you meet a girl, you're not going to ask her to marry you then, unless it's some fairy tale movie. Like, you got to start with a date, or you got to do the first steps. And it's the same thing with lead generation and with conversions. Like, you can't just say, hey, pay me $3,000 for a new 10-page website right now. No, you got to at least give them some value. And I didn't have a funnel set up like this with the way you're talking about, but I did do it in a roundabout way through my networking group. Like, I offered to meet with people, give them consultations and audits, and that's what led to some of my best jobs. So it's one of those things where, like you said, it's like I wasn't practicing what I preach. Like, I told my clients to do that, but I didn't really have a system in place for doing that, which I wish I would have years ago, particularly when I was a few years into my business. So that's a great idea. So some sort of free strategy or audit. Maybe audit's not a great. I think audit turns people off potentially, but maybe
depending on the market.
Yeah, website strategy or something that just sounds a little better than let me pick apart your website, but give you some good ideas of what to do.
Yep.
Do you offer do you say I'm going to give you some sort of plan of action after the call that they would follow or anything like that?
So when I first started, those have trickled off just because business. I don't have to do as much of that now because once you put those things in place, your business grows. But initially, when I was hustling. So I created a custom report for them. I did, I checked their speed, I checked their security, their plugins, the pros and cons. But then, yeah, afterwards I said, here are best practices. And it just so happened that a lot of the best practices, if you don't want to do this yourself, that's exactly what we do. So I would say, if you want to succeed as a coach online, your website has to be able to generate leads. And I would go through, 90% of people who come to a website aren't ready for an investment. They need multiple touch points. The only way to get that is to have an email address. So you definitely have to have a lead generator of some sort and email marketing built in. I would have a list like that. And then the final page of my report that I would give them says, here's what Savvy Hippo does. We set up your email. We do lead generation. We give you a lead generator. I just went step by step. So I set them up in the guide. Here's what you need. And then the last page was, we do it all for you. So definitely with a plan, but also with a next step.
That's the big thing. It sounds like you're building authority, you're showing your expertise, you're giving away free knowledge. I know a lot of people are leery of like giving away stuff for free. I found the more you can give for free is just the better, because as long as you know quite a bit, there's endless information. Right. And as long as you keep on leveling up and learning it, there's really, you can't give away too much. And then that helps them get to know you and sell you before they even talk to you potentially.
Right. Because with just a short conversation, I know what I'm doing. I have a history of success, just like a lot of your students, that they know what they're doing. They just need a chance to show it. So that really helped in that guide and in that free session. It was like a commercial for me, where they knew this is the person to go to. If I don't want to do this myself, it's a no-brainer. This is the person who helped me. This is the person who knows what they're doing. This is the person I'm going to choose.
Something I just thought about too, with the idea of kind of that lead in with some sort of strategy session or something like that, is you get access to their contact info. I think about how many times I met with potentially really good clients, but it was just face-to-face or at a networking event or something. And I was like, who is that guy or who is that gal? Like, I can't remember. And they're probably saying the same thing. Like, I thought I got that dude's business card, but I threw all them away. And now I forget that web designer. He seemed really nice, right? But I don't remember him. Like, this is a great way to actually build an email list of potential leads that you can cycle back around to, right? I mean, you can
definitely,
like, the value of an email list cannot be understated these days.
Especially with web design, because we're not talking, like, I wrote back in my old days, I wrote a few books, and $10, it's not bad, but when you have an email address and you're a website designer, those emails are worth thousands. So it's definitely exactly what you said. An email address for people like us, it means a lot more than to a lot of other markets.
Yeah, because if you were to circle back around and land 2 clients at $3,000 a piece, then that email's worth $6,000 right there.
Absolutely.
And that's actually, it's kind of a good segue to the next point, which is how to filter those leads. Like, this is number 4, filter the lead in offers. How did you do that? Like, when you did a strategy session, I imagine you had, okay, this person is not going to be a great fit, but this person could be a good fit. Like, do you filter them out to like A, B, and C leads, or what did that look like?
Yeah, this is huge, because especially in my business, I teach this to coaches, that do a free discovery call, strategy session, enrollment call somehow, so you can demonstrate your value and authority in advance. But naturally, they're afraid of having everyone in the world book a call, taking up all their time. Then you can't run your business, right? Yeah. Especially with so many tire kickers.
I do. I still don't have like Calendly set up or anything like that. I'm very limited with my calls on purpose because of my schedule right now. And I'm like, I know it would be more professional, because right now I'm still doing the dated, like, hey, what time works for you? Generally what I'll do is I'll give them like 2 times to pick from. Like with you, I think I said, hey, are you free Thursday or Friday at 11? That's what I do. And it's worked out really well. And I'm totally on that boat right now. Like, I don't even want to open my schedule up to even have available times, because I don't want those times to fill up yet right now. I know I'm just going to get loaded. So, but anyway, so it's still, I mean, it's a valid option, particularly if you're in the beginning, when you can do that. I mean, in the beginning, you want to talk to as many people as you can.
Right. And so, and I teach that too. Like, in the beginning, make that filter, make that vetting process a little lighter, because just talking to people helps so much. Because in the end, it doesn't matter what industry you're in, it's people to people, right? It's relationships, it's rapport, it's reading the room, it's understanding which way to take a person on the call. But what I teach then, and what I do, is with Calendly or Acuity. Those are the two that we work with, but every calendar schedule does it. I have an intake form. So as they're booking their call, they have to answer a series of questions. And that's where I filter. And so for my coaches, as an example, I have them ask things like, have you worked with a coach before? Are you willing to invest in a solution? Is this a now problem or a later problem?
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, because a lot of people they'll say, I want to do something about it later. Then And so what I teach them is, after you read those questions, you have two emails that you send. You either follow up and say, this sounds great, or you say, it doesn't seem like we're going to be a fit, but here are some resources that'll help you get started. So some people do the filter before you can book a call, where they have you apply, and then they'll review it, and then they'll let you go through the calendar process. I just think there's a little friction there. So I have people be able to book a call and fill out an intake form at the same time. And then I just put them in one of two buckets. They get an email that says, this isn't going to work, but here's some resources. I never want to just close the door.
Okay.
But if it's good, then I say, here's what we're going to do next.
Gotcha. And what is that next step, number 5? Would that be like a follow-up with, I know one reason I'm excited to talk about this, and something that you did with me when we were emailing was you sent me a little custom video from Loom, which is what I use. I use Loom. Now, I've actually pulled a trick from your book, Jason. I always just pasted the Loom link in the email, or did it like click here to watch the video. I did not know that you could do the email with Loom and then like pull the little GIF video and then add that in the email. I'm about to release a tutorial on how to do that for people because that's been amazing. Like in 2 weeks, I've been using that and it's freaking awesome. Like it's completely changed. It's completely changed. I think how people, number one, a lot of times what I'll do with students who invest in bigger courses, I'll send a quick video email and just say, hey, it's great to have you in the course. I'd love to hear about where you're at, how I can help. And I do that little custom GIF image that you just copy and paste from Loom, and it's sweet. It looks awesome. I didn't mean to derail us, but yeah, like what's the follow-up process after you get some qualified leads?
Yeah. So again, I could talk about this stuff with you all day. I just love this stuff so much because, and it makes a difference. These little things really do. They can change. They can take a designer who's struggling to a designer who has too much business. So Loom, man, do I love Loom. So what I do when I get a book call and the intake questions look good, what I do immediately is I email just to let them know it was accepted. Everything looks great. I can't wait to talk to you. What you want to do is two things. You want to do explain and excite. And so explain what's going to happen next on that call, and then excite them about it. Because as we both know, there's a big difference between someone who books a call and someone who shows up. And so I try and get rid of all the friction between that and keep that excitement going. So after that quick email, I then shoot a custom video. And I have a slide deck that I go through with every prospect. And so what I do is I briefly go through that slide deck. But the key is that I put their name on the front page.
Okay. So you kind of brand it, make them feel special.
Yep, exactly. So their name's right there. And because of what you just talked about with Loom, when you copy that link and then it has the GIF playing, they see their name right there on a slide. That's irresistible to people. I don't want to manipulate anyone, but people are busy. People ignore emails constantly.
Yeah.
But if you open an email and you see a video and your name is right there, the clicks, they'll just... Yeah, it's so much easier to get someone to follow through.
And it's not just a link or something like click here. It's like, oh, this is actually something they like put together for me. That is cool. I know when you sent that over, I was like, how the heck did he do this? This is sweet. I forget how I figured it out. I think I just clicked it and then realized like, oh, I did not know that you could, right as of right now. And again, for everyone listening to this, I am going to do a tutorial on this in the next couple of weeks here. You can just click the Gmail icon and then copy and paste the GIF, and then you can put that in any sort of email client, and then it looks awesome. It's great. Super, super cool.
Yeah, and it works. Like I've gotten so many clients. So I in the video, what I say pretty much is thanks so much, right? So thank you so much. I love that you reached out. I'm really excited about helping you on this call. Here's what we're going to do. Because Taki Moore, he runs $1 Million Coach, and he has a really great analogy for these. If your audience is going to do some type of free call, free session, But he says to most people, they're black boxes, and you're asking people to reach your hand into a black box. And that's scary. There's hesitation, there's anxiety, there's fear. So what I do in that video that I send usually within the hour after the call is booked is I say, here's exactly what we're going to do. Because that lowers that resistance to them showing up, and not just showing up, but showing up with their guard down. So I say...
So you prepare them.
Exactly. I walk them through, here is exactly what we're going to do, and here's exactly what you're going to get. It's not a high pressure sales call. I really want to help you. And here's why. Here's my background. Here's what I do. And you can work in then authority. I've been doing this 20 years. I know what works and what doesn't. And I'm really excited to help you with that because I know it can be overwhelming. The technology can be confusing. So this is going to be a great call where you're going to learn so much, but just feel so much better about what's possible.
Yeah, and I love the terminology you use there, explain then excite. I made a note of that because that's a great way. It's funny because this is just reaffirming everything I've done in the past, but I just didn't know I did it. And I didn't do it in this fashion. But yeah, I met with people and I explained like maybe what was bad with their website or what I'd recommend changing. And then I'd be like, what we could do is we could build these type of pages. We could come up with this design. And then it went from them like knowing what was wrong to like, ooh, I'm excited about having a new website.
Yep.
So that's huge. Explain and excite. And I will say with the idea of these custom videos, short videos is where it's at. That is just, it's so underrated. I think more people are understanding it, but let me just say this to everyone who's listening as far as if you're a web designer. If you just take a couple minutes to do a little custom video like you're talking about, Jason, it will increase the probability of landing that client, tenfold, maybe more than that, because it really is so powerful. Like what I started doing was doing videos with my proposals. Like instead of just sending them over proposal,
right.
I would actually do a 5-minute video of me walking them through so they can hear me and showing examples. And that proved to be really effective. Short videos, huge.
Yep.
Awesome way to go.
I've gotten people who say, I signed on because of that video. Because no one else, I reached out to a few other web designers and they would email me quotes. You shot a custom video just for me and it takes me 5 minutes. I have all my systems set up. So I have the slides, they're already ready to go. You just click Loom, click one button, it's recording your screen. It doesn't take that much time at all when you put the systems in place, but like you said, it makes such a huge difference.
And you don't need to have a fancy mic like I have or soundproofing or lighting. Like it can just be you in your office. Clients don't care. Clients want to see who they're working with and they want to get to know them. Like that's just, I cannot encourage people enough to do that. And I think I'm going to do an episode too here coming up on short videos and what I've learned with it. Cause it's huge, man. It's just awesome.
Yep. I couldn't agree more.
Now at that point, step 6 is the reminding phase. Like, okay, all that sounds great. Maybe you landed a few clients, but what if they move on for whatever reason? Maybe they're just not ready to commit. Maybe they don't have the budget yet, for whatever reason. The trick is here. This is where I would say I probably struggled with or maybe failed the most in my days of leading up to the past couple of years with the business is the reminder phase. Because number one, I would forget, like I'd be like, crap, I completely forgot that I talked to that person a few weeks ago. Now I feel like it's too late to reach back out. Whereas if I would have had a really specific reminding schedule, which could be an email, could be another little short video. What did that look like for you? What did you find that helped with being successful with like the reminding phase? Because it is important. I imagine once you get to a certain successful level, you don't have to do that as much, but particularly in the beginning, those reminders are huge. Because a lot of times clients don't intentionally bail or disappear. They just forget about you. Like if they're talking with 10 agencies, they may just forget about you, but the one who follows up with them and is, let's say, cleverly persistent and not overly like overbearing, like you don't want to send them 10 emails every day. But it's those who are like, thoughtfully persistent, maybe those are the ones who really stand out. Right.
Yep, absolutely. And yeah, I have so many ideas from what you said. So Down & Miller and StoryBrand, they talk about email is not what it used to be as far as I'm sending you this message, read it now. It's more of as they swipe to delete your email, they see your name. And so I love that idea that email is not just about getting them to read your email and click. It's about remembering and recognition. It's about top of mind. So even if you send a few reminders and they just delete it because they're too busy, you're still top of mind. You're still in their phone and they look at you as they swipe. So even when they delete you, it's still so critical
That's
to just be, to be top of mind. But you're right. I think a big point is in business in general, especially with designers though, I find that rejection is really hard to take. But with self-awareness, you realize these people don't have anything against you and they may think you are the choice to go with, but they also have a newborn. They also are struggling with, they're having an issue with their wife or one of their friends, or there's some big party coming up they have to plan for. Like, life gets in the way. So when you follow up, it's not like you're the only email that's showing up and they're like annoyed that you're nagging them. It's that they are overwhelmed. Life is crazy. And by showing up over and over, they appreciate it because they're like, oh yeah, you are the person that I wanted to work with.
Yeah, with the idea of reminders, I mean, yeah, you do have to stay top of mind. And it is one of those things where, like I said, life happens. They might be busy. They may not be ready to pull the trigger yet, but maybe they're ready in 2 weeks. And that's where like an additional follow-up could be huge. That could be crucial. Yep. Like you could miss out on thousands of dollars just because you didn't send one more email.
Right. I've gotten dozens of clients because I would 3 days later or 4 days later, I'd send an email and then they'd say, oh, that's right. I've been meaning to reach out to you. I'm glad you did first.
Now, what was the content of your follow-ups or your reminders? Was it like, hey, I hope you enjoyed this, like, here are our services type of thing? Or what was there like another step you would pull them into? What did the content look like for you? Because that's the question, like, what should I email? I don't want to sound desperate. Like, hey, did you get it? Now, what I have done in the past is, like, if I would send a proposal out and I didn't hear anything back in a couple days, I would always, not the day after, but the following day, I would always make a note of it, whether it's in the calendar or whether it's in I have a little action day planner that I write out little notes if I need to remind myself on, or if it could be a Post-it. But I would always do the following day, 2 days later. And I would always just say, hey, blank, just checking in to make sure you got a chance to check out the proposal. Let me know you have any questions. I'd be happy to set up another call if we need to, or answer any questions you have. That was kind of my approach. Was it something like that, or what did you find out that worked?
So, and I did this in 2 lanes. One, I did all of these steps just to get them on that free call where I would provide value. So I think it would be helpful too for everyone listening to know this much marketing goes into just that free call, because that's where your business happens, getting people to show up for my free website reviews. So all of the follow-up and those custom videos, all of that, I did it both times. I did it when I was just trying to get them on that initial call for me to give them free value. And so the reminders there were the excite and explain heavy. So this is a free call. We're not going to talk, like, no obligation. I'm not going to talk about my service. I'm not going to pitch you. This is just about developing a relationship and delivering value. And so there it was, here's what we're going to do on this call, and here are all the great things that are coming up. So as soon as they booked, I would shoot the video letting them know what we're going to do. And then I'd send emails between the time they booked and then when the call was held. And in my calendar, I often limited that. I didn't want people to be able to book too far out in advance because of life getting in the way. Once it's beyond 3 days, it is harder to get people to make it a priority. And so I would limit my calendar where they couldn't book, weeks or months in advance, because it would just be out of their mind. They wouldn't remember. So at that stage, it was getting them excited. Here's what we're going to do. Our call's just a few days away. And then I would do it the day of. Our call's just a few hours away. So there's that strategy. How do I get people to show up for my free call? I would do text reminders, which is huge. So I require the phone number on the form, my intake with a little note saying we'll text you the day of. And then I would send a text reminder saying our call's coming up. So that's what I did there. When it was the proposal, what I did was on my call, pitching the proposal, I would give them a special offer. So usually it was 72 hours. So if you want this price point with these bonuses, and again, my marketing history was shining through. I think a lot of designers say, here's my service, but here's my main service. But also, I will give you 30 days additional tech support. I can give you a $250 discount, a fast action discount. And so I would have a really great offer.
Okay.
And I'd give them 72 hours, which gave a natural reason to follow up.
Add some urgency.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I'd say, I have 4 spots. You have 72 hours. If you're interested, I would love to have you. And here's how it looks like if you're interested. We're going to do X, Y, Z. And the first step is you just got to give me the affirmative. And that will be by email. So I'm going to give you 3 days to think about this. I don't want to rush you. I'm not twisting your arm. You don't have to say yes now. But what I found, and I always say this, and I'm honest with my coaches too, because I design just for coaches, so I can kind of work in their industry. I say, when you yourself are on a call like this, if people take more than 3 days, it's usually not going to work because things get in the way. And 72 hours is a lot of time for them to question whether or not they should invest. Yeah. And so I do the same thing.
Or forget
I'm going to give you, or forget that you exist.
Yeah.
And so that's what I do then. I follow up. So my first follow up is, and I do it within hopefully 5 minutes after the call. And I can make that work because of my schedule. I know not everyone can follow up that quickly, but I send a quick follow up that says, thank you so much. This was great. I look forward to helping you. Here are sample sites that I've done. Here are 3 testimonials from clients who've worked with me.
So adding a little more proof and results.
Yep. And then I reached out to my clients, the clients who I just love to work with and love to work with me. And I asked them, could I send prospects to you by email if they're interested in talking with someone about how it was working with me? And so I include several emails in that follow-up saying, of course I'm biased. If you want to hear from people who worked with me, how it really was, and if they felt like they got the value that I'm promising, you can email these 3 people and they will let you know how the process was. That's my initial thanking them, giving them samples, giving them testimonials, and then giving them someone they can actually reach out to.
Okay. And, I think the one thing that's really valuable and to think about through all this is that you don't have to go through every single one of these steps to make a sale. Like as I was looking at this list, I'm thinking to myself, you know what? Sometimes the sale is going to happen immediately or it might happen in step 3. But I love that there is a clear proven path here as like a plan B. Like if you're on step 5 and they haven't bought from they haven't bought from your services yet, there's still a few options, which is great. Because for me, I went years thinking like, well, if I met with a client and they didn't move forward, that sucks. But I probably missed out on hundreds of thousands of dollars because I didn't have these other steps in place. So Jason should have reached out to me 10 years ago, man. We would have really done some damage. But this is great, man. So the reminder, there's a lot of different ways you could do the reminders. And I think adding social proof and results, opening doors to more offers is huge. And then number 7, you talked about potentially presenting a problem and a solution. Would that kind of lead into what you just talked about with like, offering some additional kind of strategy or offers, or what does that look like?
Yeah. So afterwards, and just to wrap, so that they get that initial email, then I would talk more about in my follow-up to see if they're interested in closing. I'd do more of the special offer. So that first email was more like a wrap.
Okay.
It was great talking with you. I'm excited about what's to come. Social proof and examples. Then the next email would be more focused on, you have 48 hours, just so you know. The window is closing and I have this many spots available, which when it comes to selling courses, it always was so ridiculous to me back in the day when people would say limited quantities on my digital course. Like,
right.
Or your ebook. I have 1,000 copies of my ebook.
Right.
But when it comes to designers, we are limited. We can't take on the world. So there's nothing wrong with using honest scarcity and honest urgency.
That's a great point.
Right?
Yeah.
So I let them know, I have 3 slots available. If it doesn't work for you now, that's fine, but you will be back in the calendar. And so we won't be able to get started until this date. So that adds a little urgency, but like I said, in a way that is honest, authentic. Sales can be pure and a win-win if you do it right.
Yeah.
And so that I felt good about that.
And that is a great point because web designers, like, we are limited with how much we can do. And that honest, what was the phrase you used there? Honest scarcity or something?
Right. Honest urgency and honest
Urgency.
scarcity.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's great. Yeah. Yeah. It's like with me with my courses, I'm not going to say there's only 100 spots, join now. Now, if I host a free webinar, I am limited to 100 spots because of my Zoom account. So that's, that's honest, but yeah, I'm not going to, pull that card on people when it's simply not true. But I think that's a great point. And one thing I meant to say too, I know as we're going through this list, it can feel like, man, that's a lot of work. I don't know if I want to do all this, but we're going into detail on something that once you have in place, I'm not going to say it doesn't take that long, but it's going to be expedite. Like, it's going to take a while to get this in place. It could take a decent amount of time to, just like any system or process set up. But once this is all in place, you can cook through it. And web designers, we're not generally getting a ton of leads every week or every month. If you are, you're probably you need to scale to where you have a team to handle this stuff. Mm-hmm. But the cool thing about this is, like, you can have this in place. And even if you get one good lead a week, this is absolutely manageable for one lead a week, particularly since we're talking about services where people are investing several $1,000s. Right. It's not like a $10. You're not going to do this for a $10 sale, like you said with a book. So yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So I think two things. One, this is where people are separated into I tried that business. I tried to be a website designer and it just didn't work. And I succeeded. I love what I do. And that's the work. There's no way to avoid it. I know there's that fairy tale online, right? That, like, some of my clients think you put a website up, number one in Google. Yay, you're rich. But this is where you can separate yourself by doing that extra. Because what I thought in the beginning was, I am one of, say, 10 people they're talking with right now. What can I do? I've got to do something to get to speak a little louder, to stand out. And so it's worth it. It is work, but it is work that is worth it. And then, like you said, I'm a systems guy. I have a spreadsheet. All the emails are pre-written. It is just clockwork. Tick, 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 tick. So all of these steps, it definitely does seem like a lot at first and it can definitely be overwhelming. But like you said, you don't have to do them all. But once you do them, these things, my slides, they're already in place. Loom is already ready to go. My emails are already written. So everything is just copy paste. It's a system because, like you said, you want to scale. Like, at first it was 1, 2, 3, 5, 10, sometimes 15 a month now, where I'm just running through these systems. And once you have your system dialed in, then you can really get into the nitty gritty marketing. Like, this email is working.
Then you can really dive into each one. Two quick points I wanted to make. One was, again, the idea of, like, oh, this is, how am I going to keep up with this? But again, if you're only doing this once a week or even once every 2 weeks, it's very manageable. Yep. Even in the beginning when you're building all this out, it doesn't have to be perfect the first time. Like, everything's I'm sure it's a continual, you're just reworking things and revamping templates and things. But I think you said something that's very valuable there. And that is, if I'm one of 10 people, like, if this client is looking at 10 other agencies as well, what can I do to stand out? Like, what are they not doing? That's a great mindset to have is, am I going to just sit back and just wait, or am I actually going to be proactive and do something that these other agencies are doing? I think that's a huge point. And then the other thing is, just to reaffirm what you just said, as far as building systems and processes like this, there's a decent amount of work getting it set up, but it really is, like, it's not that much work in the long run after you do it over and over. Like, for my podcast, I remember I felt a little overwhelmed, just a little bit. I knew how much work was going to be involved, which is why it didn't, like, scare me or startle me, but I knew there's going to be a heck of an amount of work creating all of my processes and templates, because I'm recording this. There's the post-production of the video. There's exporting the audio. There's putting it on Buzzsprout, which is where I have the podcast hosted. There's uploading it to YouTube. There's doing social media and my email marketing. All of that goes into just one episode. The cool thing is, I can do all of that right now in less than about 2 hours. I have, like, all my systems in place, all my templates, to where I can bust that out pretty quickly, unless I'm getting, like, really in depth with, like, on this one, I'll list out the tips and everything. But I say that to say, like, yeah, it took a lot of time in the beginning to get that all ready, but now 2 hours a week and I can bust out a podcast. And once I start handing some of those services off for other people to do, I'll be even more freed up.
And that's a great point.
A lot of people are like, I don't know how you do so much content. I'm like, well, I just have my systems, and like I've invested in thinking through my systems and templates and stuff.
I'd really love that point too, that you said handing it off, because if you don't have these processes written down and mapped out, it's always going to be you. So eventually, if you do want to scale and you want to hire virtual assistants, if you don't have your systems, like almost a manual, an owner's manual of how to do what you do, it's going to be so much harder to hire in the first place and then to have them do the job you actually want them to do.
Yeah.
So that's a great point, that if you do get these processes down, that's how you can hand things off to other people and delegate and still get a successful result.
Yes, absolutely. And make it a little SOP, a little standard operating procedure. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. It could be a Google Doc with just some bullet point directions and links to quick videos of you walking them through how to do it, and your
use
goal.
Loom.
Use Loom. Yeah. And then, so like to wrap up here, Jason, so the final step was talking about either doing a post call or some final offer. I know that's kind of what we just talked about with presenting like an additional offer, but is there any other kind of final step that you would recommend in this to kind of wrap that up? Is there like a, like last chance kind of offer or anything like that?
So I'll kind of add onto our list, even though I didn't send it to you. So this is, a bonus tip. This also helped me a lot. So yeah, I would do, they got 3 days. So each day they'd get an email. Like I said, the first one, that was the wrap. The next one was just reiterating that there is honest scarcity and urgency here. Time is limited, and here's everything you're going to get. And that last email would be sometimes when a take back. So in marketing and sales, sometimes they talk about a take back sale, where you go from the asker to you go from someone who's saying, please give me your business, like I want to work with you, to this might not be the best fit for you. And so when that kind of triggers in people like, whoa, hold on, I'm interested. Like, don't go away from me. Because you almost go to the wanted party. And I do that, not manipulating at all. I just say, if you're not interested, that makes perfect sense. Not everyone is for us, but here are some other resources. And so I point them, because I want to leave them feeling good about their interaction with me, regardless of whether or not they hire me. And so I will point them to different resources, and that builds my value even more. But what it does also, and this is my extra little bonus tip, is referral business. Most designers will say they get their business through referrals. I have systems in place. And so what I do is I say, this might not work for you. Totally understand. But if you know someone that it does work with, why don't you click this link, and you can learn all about how you can earn a commission just by referring me to other people. So I know I wasn't a great fit, but people in your audience might. And so I have a referral program where they get X amount by referring us to anyone else. That referee gets a special call with me, which is just my free website review. So I'm using that same offer, but I'm packaging it in my referral program. So anyone you refer, I'm going to take great care of them. They're going to get a 60-minute call with me, whether or not they hire me, just so I can give them some great tips. And if they do sign on, you get a commission, and that commission is unlimited, and there's no time limit. So if you refer someone to me in 5 years, or if you refer 10 people, you're going to just keep getting commissions. Gotcha. So that does two things. It sends me, after every client I do this, after every paying client and after every prospect, I'm getting a stream of people from clients who loved working with me, but also from people who said no. So that's kind of how I end that relationship, by saying, it might not have worked for you, but if you know someone it does work for, you could actually earn some money just by sharing this. And I have a standard email. I wrote it for them. You can send this to your network, post it on social. And if anyone says yes, I'll be sending you money.
And, talk about looking different than everyone else. Like, can you imagine a client, I'm thinking about web design specific. Imagine a client is going through a proposal process, and at the very end, somebody reaches out to them and says, hey, we'd love to work with you still, but if we're not the best fit, here are a bunch of other agencies in the area who do a really good job as well. Like, imagine how different that would look. Like, nobody is doing that, like co-opetition. Nobody is sending links to competitors. Like, that is a great way to kind of end that. It kind of makes you take the high road. Like, I did everything I could, and by God, I'm still going to give them free value, which is super valuable. Like even,
Yep.
I mean, people are going to know when you do something like that, which is super valuable.
And it's right. It's from Miracle on 34th Street.
I was just thinking that. Yeah.
Yep.
Where he's like, they don't have it at Macy's. Yeah. Santa's like, they don't have it at Macy's. Go over to JCPenney or whatever it was, or what. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yep. Because I do and just like you, it's obvious listening to you for 5 minutes, we really want to help people. We want to see them better off. I would love if you're my client, but if not, I still want your life to be better.
And you know what? Yeah, at that point, like if they do decide to check out another agency and then they're like, wow, this agency is not what I just got, even in just the proposal process with Josh and his team. So I think I'm going to go with them. Like what a great way to and then you're gold. Then that's your client for life right there.
Yep.
Yep,
you're absolutely right. Because so many people are afraid of the high pressure sale, right? Like almost everyone who is looking for a website designer doesn't want that feeling like they're on a card lot getting pitched. So everything I can do to just ease that worry and let them know I'm a human. In my slide deck, I show a picture of my family. I let them know,
yes,
we are real people. Like I'm in this to help you. And yeah, I would love to create the website of your dreams and have it grow your business or build your brand. But if not, in the end, I just want to see you better off by coming into contact with Savvy Hippo. And that it's sincere and it makes a huge difference.
Yeah. And what you just said is key. It takes the pressure and it takes the feeling of being like this sleazy used carsman sales type guy. Like if you just are honest and you are real and transparent and you just talk about and this is kind of what I shared a couple episodes ago in my sales tips. If you just share ideas and share what you would do, right then you're out of your sales hat. Like you're just being you. Like you're just sharing hey, here's what I do. And that, my friends, is the best sales. Like that's it. If you can just get a chance to share what you would do and your vision and your strategy, even just talking about simple website cosmetic things, clients are not going to view you as them, you trying to milk nickel and dime them for every, or try to get every ounce of money that they have. It's like, wow, he's actually sharing some good strategies and it's getting me fired up. I'm informed and I'm excited. Like you talked
absolutely. About. It's what I just read. So Russell Brunson, he's big in the internet marketing world, and he has this analogy of the one big domino. And I love this. And what he teaches is that on a sales call, all you have to do is get someone to believe the one big domino and everything else falls into place. So for me, I don't pitch, hire me. What I pitch is, you need a specialized coaching website. And here's why. There's no selling. There's no, pick me. I'm the one to go to. All of that, I erased it all from my sales calls. And all I do is focus on, if you want to succeed, you need this one thing, which is a coaching website. If I can get them to believe that, I'm the obvious choice. And so anyone who's listening on those calls, you don't have to twist arms. You don't have to be that snake oil salesman. You just have to get them to believe that what you have to offer is going to improve their life or business. Okay. And that's what you focus on is, as a coach, you need A, B, and C. And here's why. And I kind of put my arm around them and say, let's figure this out together. I know the struggles you're going through and I know you want to succeed. Well, here's what it actually takes. I don't talk about web design. I don't talk about our packages, our prices, none of that. Most of my call is just getting them to believe that one big domino, which is, I need a coaching website.
The need, like affirming the need kind of thing.
Exactly. Yeah. And then the sale happens naturally. If I can get them to believe that they need this thing, I'm the obvious and natural choice. And so you don't have to be that pushy salesman. You really just tell your story, connect with them, and get them to believe.
That's what I love about this path, these tips. And what I'd like to do real quick before we wrap up here, Jason, is I've done this before on a couple episodes, but I'd like to literally talk about this as a path for a web designer. Because again, these tips, there's some work in setting it all up, but it'll be so well worth it. Just like any system or process, it's going to save time, and this is hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of knowledge right here, this path. And the other thing I wanted to say is that, again, keep in mind, you're not going to go through every single one of these tips every time. Like you may land a client on step 2. So with that in mind, I'm trying to think back to Josh, 8 years ago. I'm in my business. I've got it going. I've got some clients, but I want to take it to the next level. Here's what I would do given this pathway. Step one, I would choose the target audience or target market. And I'm going to say, you know what? I'm in Grove City, Ohio, which is outside of Columbus. So instead of focusing on all of Columbus, I'm going to focus on Grove City. I'm going to try to get a lot of the successful businesses in Grove City. So I'm going to join the Chamber of Commerce, a networking group, and at least have my name out there. But step two, what I'm going to do is instead of just doing Facebook ads or newspaper ads or something like that, what I'm going to do is start a video series. And one of my clients did this and just interview some of the businesses in Grove City and talk about either tips from their businesses or their industries and have a nice video series. And I'm just going to say, hey, I'm Josh. I do website design. And what we're going to do in this interview is talk about this restaurant and what they offer, or this business and what they offer, and not be the middleman, but just offer free value and make it a win-win-win for everybody involved. And that right there, like you talked about, is one of the best ways to build authority, just by talking with people, just like get to know, like, and trust you.
Absolutely.
So that would be my kind of offshoot of a way to get some traffic, really good lead generation. And number three would be to have the main call to action to be book a strategy call or a consultation where I give them really good advice on what they could do to their website. No pressure, but just good advice. However that would work with like a consultation. And then as far as like how I filter those, I would probably, number four, I would filter, okay, here are the A clients that I really would like to nail down here. These other ones, it would be cool, but not a big deal. So I'd probably have a different funnel for them as far as the email kind of stuff. But then I would follow up with the email with a custom video, whether they get a proposal at that point or whether I just follow up with some sort of custom email with saying, here's what I would recommend. Or maybe, we had a great consultation, wanted to give you a quick 10-minute video of kind of the thoughts that we talked about so you have a nice strategy in place for your website. Something like that, ideally with a custom video. And then if we don't hear anything back or we didn't land the client, I would send some email reminders. Potentially, I would say 3. That's kind of what I recommend in my business course is 3 reminders.
Me too.
Okay, awesome. So, because I feel like any more than that, you look desperate. Any less than that, chances are they're going to forget about you. Or like I said, it's not enough. But 3 seems to be a sweet spot. So a couple days after the call, remind them of what you'd sent over or whatever, or the offer. And then a few days after that, and maybe a week or two at the end, just kind of like the final reminder. And that kind of leads us to the remaining points, which is talk about the problem that they had in your solutions, but then offer some social proof, testimonials, ideally video testimonials, but written are great too. Any other sort of offer or valuable thing. And then at the very end, that last third email, if they still haven't heard back, then give them some referral options. And that's what I would do. I mean, that's a heck of a path right there, man. That's a great. And again, as I just kind of solidified it and then glanced through it, I think that makes it a little more digestible because you realize, we talked about a lot of in-depth things, but the path itself, you would just rework each one of those depending on the client. And again, for web designers, we're not going to be doing this multiple times a day. It's probably going to be once or twice a week on average, which is very manageable. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of throw that out there as what I would do as a web designer practically.
And what I think about when we were talking about they're reaching out to other people, you can look at every one of these steps as just imagine a staircase. And at the bottom of that staircase is everyone else, 10,000 designers. But every little extra thing you do, you're stepping up a little bit higher. And so if you want to put 2 of these things into play, that's going to help you. You're going to be 2 steps higher than everyone else. If you want to really push it, you can go 3 or 4 steps higher. So every one of these steps just raises you a little bit more above the ocean of competition.
That's great. That's awesome, Jason. Well, man, this has been super, super cool. I've really, really enjoyed this. I'm excited to hear how this helps my audience of web designers. The cool thing about this too, as we're in the middle of the pandemic, is all of this can be done online. Like you don't have to meet in person. You could do a Zoom call or a strategy session like that. I mean, everything here we're talking about can be done virtually.
Absolutely.
With that in mind, do you have I always like to ask like a final thought. Is there anything you'd like to kind of sum this up with as we wrap up here?
Yeah, I would think, because I'm in like most designers, a ton of groups of designers, and most are struggling. And I think the reason is they're missing what we talked about right at the beginning of the call, marketing. you don't have to think of yourself as an internet marketer. You don't have to think of yourself as this, like we said, this car salesman. But if you don't market what you do, you're doing yourself a disservice, but you're doing clients a disservice. Because if you do good work, which if they're listening to you, I have no doubt they're doing good work and they can really help people. You owe it to them and to yourself to sell what you do. And so marketing doesn't have to be a dirty word. There can be art involved, of course. And I'm sure the work that the people listening do is beautiful. But don't be afraid to think of yourself as an entrepreneur, as a business owner who needs to market. Yeah. I know a lot of people push against that, but when you do it right and you're authentic and you're honest, it is a win-win. And you need to sell, because there's other designers out there who aren't going to be as authentic and honest, and they're going to sell and they're going to get the job, and that client will be worse off because you didn't stand up for yourself and sell your services. So that's the big issue I see, is marketing doesn't have to be a dirty word. If you do it right, it's a win-win.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. And it is so important. A lot of people in the web design, I'm sure you've experienced this too, or at least have seen this. A lot of web designers say, well, I'm not getting like any clients. I'm 6 months into my business and I'm just not getting any clients. I'm like, well, what are you doing? Like, are you doing anything? You can't just build the web. It's not just build it and they will come. That, like you said, it's that dream that people see where it's probably the Squarespace commercials and stuff where they're like, build a website. God. And then, like that's completely made our life so much more difficult because you have to explain to people that's not the way it works. But yeah, same thing. Like if you're not doing anything, if you're not networking, if you don't have a path like this in place, if you're not doing any sort of content marketing or any sort of, whether it's local or virtual kind of networking, or if you're not a part of any sort of meetups or groups or anything like that, nobody knows you're there. So you've got to put yourself out there. That's the big thing too, is just put yourself out there. I know it's tough, particularly when you're starting out and you don't have all the expertise yet, but no one has all the expertise. Like we're still learning. You and I are still learning through all this stuff too. It's changing constantly. Yeah. So yeah, just find whatever makes you, I always say, for me, it was just the personal touch kind of service. I was never the best designer or the best coder. I worked my way through that stuff. But for me, my customer service was second to none. So that's what I focused on. Whereas if you're the best designer, if you're an incredible designer, show that off, highlight that.
Right. Yeah. So your special sauce. Yep.
Yeah. Well, awesome, Jason. This has been great, man. I'm definitely going to have you on for a couple. We could talk about going niche all day. I'm really curious about that. And then to hear your story with battling cancer is amazing, man. So congrats on that.
Oh, thank you so much.
Definitely love hearing how far you've come with that. So, well, awesome, man. Thank you so much for your time. I know you're a busy guy, but maybe not that busy since you've got all your systems in place. So.
It is true. Nice. Well, thank you. This is fantastic. There's nothing I love more than talking business and talking design, especially with someone like you. So thanks so much.
Awesome, Jason. We'll talk soon, man.
Sounds good.
Hey guys and gals, just wanted to pop in with a couple things before you head out. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider leaving a review on iTunes or wherever you listen to this podcast. I would love to hear your feedback, and it will also help other web designers find the show. Be sure to check out the show notes for this episode. Just go to joshhall.co, click on podcasts, and search this episode number, and you'll find all the links, descriptions, and resources we talked about. And if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe, and you'll be notified when the next episode is live. Thanks again for tuning in, and I'll catch you guys on the next episode.